So I've been thinking a lot about how to frame this video exactly. Even the title I wasn't quite sure about, but let's call it backpacking gear that I cannot recommend, even though other people might. These are pieces of gear that I've either had a bad experience with or had a close friend, for example, tell me that it hasn't worked for them and why, and I've actually stayed away from recommending them. So I've thought a lot about how I should be framing this video because I hate overly negative videos, but I think critical videos are important to balance the channel out so you're not seeing something that's only sunshine and roses for absolutely every single product that you ever see. But here are 4 products that I've spent time with and I just cannot recommend to you guys. So the Knock Outdoors Vecto. Lots of people love this water bag. I know Devin from Backcountry Exposure does. I know Darwin loves his. But I cannot get past the home level of testing. So for me, when I test a product or I get something, I test it here at home first, and then I test it out on the trail. This is the second iteration of the Knock Vecto since they have tweaked some things with their water bag. The initial version, what ended up happening is it leaked from the seal no matter how I tried or tested it at home, and then also leaked from here. That's the first version. Then they kind of redid things, improved quality control, and I didn't get any leaking from the cap on my home test, but I got leaking once again from the seal. So my testing for the Knock Outdoors Vecto is pretty simple. I do some straight up filtering through it. And my second step at home I try to do is I leave it overnight, completely full. And what I make sure I do is I dry off the entire bag. I make sure there's no water left in the seal or anything. I go ahead and click it shut and I leave it overnight. And I put pretty much paper towels underneath it so that I can see whether or not it's gonna leak or not. And unfortunately, every time I've tested it, I'm up to 3 or 4 times at this point, it has leaked through the seal, through the scoop end. So that's why you haven't seen me recommend it or mention. But I know lots of people love it, and I think you'll be fine if you just hang it as a gravity setup and don't use it for a longer term water storage or to camel up. Then I would feel more comfortable with it, but you're not gonna see it in my pack. You guys have seen me open a bunch of solar chargers and you haven't seen any of them in reviews. The reason why is that most of these budget solar chargers are not great. I had trouble charging it. It has trouble because of the size, I think, of the solar panel, for example. This one, getting any sort of real energy from the sun except on a really bright day, and then it's very slow. For most people, you're better off spending a little bit more money either getting one of my favorite solar chargers is the Flybox Gadgets SQ1, or go even more expensive and get something like a Goal Zero, and they have lots of different options because they work, they have great customer service. This particular one did not work well for me. I also had a cheaper panel that I wanted to try out and it did not work well either, which is why you haven't seen them. So for solar chargers, those are the 2 that I personally would recommend. And this one is funny because if you have your posts turned on your subscriptions, and you probably will see my community tab that comes up occasionally, I just posted that the Ultra Lone Peaks were on mass drop for a fantastic deal. And I know lots of people love their Ultra Lone Peaks, especially the 3.5s. A lot of people like the most recent version of the Ultras because they're 0 drop. And honestly, that's the big reason why you haven't seen me flat out recommend Ultras, because the 0 drop takes a little bit of adjustment, which I'm not willing to be able to put the time in to do. I think they even say on their website, they talk about their adjustment period. And so for me, I feel like we've spent most of our lives walking a certain way with shoes, so I'm gonna stick to that. I don't have any problems with my Achilles right now or any tendons or walking anyway, so I'm gonna stick to what works, which is the Salomon X Ultras for in the winter time and the Salomon Speedcross 4s for the other 3 seasons. And so maybe you want to test it out because a lot of people swear by the 0 drop in terms of comfort while they're hiking, but it's not something that I can recommend or feel comfortable recommending because I've personally seen what's happened to people who don't have a proper adjustment period for that 0 drop. It really can mess you up. So, and last but not least, one that everyone and their brother recommends for any hiker is Darn Tough socks. I started off trying Darn Tough socks, and let me tell you, the customer service I've seen reported, never had to use it, has been awesome. But I've personally used Darn Tough socks, and it doesn't work for me because I still got hot spots. I still had that friction between the sock and the boot and my foot, and I got hot spots all over. When I first started hiking with Darn Toughs, I tended to get a lot more blisters, and so I switched to, you guys know, the right sock. And because it's a double layer sock, the friction tends to be transferred more between the layers of the sock and not between my foot and the sock, or the foot and the boot. So something to keep in mind. I know everyone loves Darn Tough, but that's my 2 cents on it. So are there pieces of gear that you hear from everyone that these have worked really well, but you yourself had a personal experience and you don't enjoy? And you feel you're kind of swimming upstream and you're like, okay, I kind of feel like a weirdo suggesting this because everyone likes Y. But let me know down in the comments. I'm always interested in finding people who do things a different way it works for them, because we're not all the same. We're not all going to like the exact same gear. And honestly, because if you think about the overall percentages of gear out there, some are just going to flat out fail. Let me know down in the comments what piece of gear works for you that's more of an oddball type of recommendation. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.